Why Gunn Superman made less money than Man of Steel? Y'all are already in the comments. I can feel it.
Superman's box office numbers are one of the most talked about topics when it comes to Gunn's movie.
Yeah,
half
it is.
The internet says it's a huge win for Warner and the best possible start for the new DCU. But the
Okay.
other half says it's a flop because it didn't even come close to hitting $1 billion. And
Now, guys, how can it be that people are both saying great success, big win, good start for the DCU, and then the other half is like horrible, the DCU is dead, there won't be any more movies, this is a complete financial flop? Like, how are we so divided, guys?
didn't manage to beat the total earnings of Man of Steel. Today, I'm going to break
True.
down the real story behind Superman's...
But Man of Steel was not a flop. People said back in 2013 that it was a flop, and I was like, no, it made $670 million, and they were like, no, it should have made $1 billion. I'm like, that was back in 2013 people were saying that. Man of Steel did good, okay? It did good.
box office by answering 3 questions. First, whether the movie made a profit or not. Basically, if the studio actually made money off of it. Second, why it didn't make as much as Man of Steel. And third, whether the studio sees it as a real hit or if its box office performance was a total letdown.
Okay, I want you to put in the comments your definition of a flop. My definition of a flop is it doesn't make money. It loses money. So a break even is not a flop. A break even could be an investment into something else, or it could be just as the studio is just like, okay, well, we got a lot of attention on our studio. There we go. There's that kind of win. And a success would be, it makes money. It makes money of some kind. But flop to me is when you lose money. Snow White flop. So put your definition in the comments of what a flop is.
Let's start by answering whether Superman actually made money. The film pulled in $125 million on opening weekend in the US, marking the best opening ever for a Superman movie. It's probably going to finish its theatrical run with around $600 million worldwide.
Okay, that's a really good, interesting comment because it also did really well domestically. If it had had international numbers, this movie would have easily, if it had had the 47% be, for the domestic or whatever, it would have easily done well to where people were just, shutting their mouths. The question is, why did it not do good overseas? Was it the political aspect? Was it that he went too political in his movie? Was it the political climate of America? Was it, the simple fact that people are superhero fatigued? That's what I'm really curious about, because when we talk about domestic, the movie did great. These movies aren't made to make all of their money domestic or international. They're made to get as much as possible. Man of Steel didn't cover domestic, either. So I'm really curious, like, what's up with that?
$70 million less than Man of Steel. That puts it in second place among Superman's most successful standalone movies.
Oh, let's look at these numbers. Okay, so these are just flat out numbers. Yes. Yeah, these are not adjusted for inflation. These are flat out numbers, which is why Man of Steel is up at top. Yeah. Which I don't know. I don't really agree with adjusting for inflation for a lot of reasons, but I also get why you need to do it when you're, 50 years behind.
And in first place for highest grossing superhero movies of the year, beating Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and First Steps.
Okay, here's where we get a little debate in the comments. Are those movies anything to rag home about beating? You know what I'm saying? Like, I heard people acting like Thunderbolts was good, but I also heard them acting like it was a flop. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the climate, guys. I don't know. But it just seems like no matter how you spin it, you can have another side say this thing to, show their point. It's just crazy.
Didn't do as well overseas as Man of Steel did, but it absolutely crushed it at home, making $335 million. That's the highest number for any movie featuring supes, even including crossovers like Batman v Superman or Justice League. And yeah, I know these numbers don't factor in inflation, but don't worry, we'll get to that later.
Okay, so let's talk money.
Yeah, let's talk money. Rachel was always funny in the beginning. But guys, I really am confused on just why people are both on extremes. Some are saying it definitely 100% is a flop. And some are saying it definitely 100% is a financial success. And I'm like, how could... It's crazy. It's crazy.
Now is whether these numbers actually helped Warner or if they're just for show online. To find out, we'll use 2 magic formulas that calculate box office profitability.
All right.
The first one is multiplying the production budget by 2.5, since the original budget doesn't include marketing costs.
Now, guys, put in the comments, what does the 2.5 include? A lot of you come and say stuff like, oh, the ticket sales, they get to keep 50 and all that. And I'm like, that's what that includes. You know what I mean? The 2.5 is to cover all the costs, to see how much profit you made. The 2.5 isn't to cover some things to see, it's to cover it. That's what the 2.5 is for. It's an average-based covering.
Chunk of ticket sales that goes to theaters, which varies depending on the chain
I
and
gotta
country
see what he said.
marketing costs, or the chunk of ticket sales that magic formulas that calculate box office profitability. The first one is multiplying the production budget by 2.5, since the original budget doesn't include marketing costs, or the chunk of ticket sales that goes to theaters, which varies depending on the chain and country.
Right, because those numbers include that stuff.
Since Superman had an official budget of $220 million, its break-even point is $550 million. It already passed that.
Again, guys, don't argue yet. Using that math. So we're going to get to another math. I think he's going to, I don't know what that's going to be, but we're going to get to another math. So we'll see how it pans out with this math. Remember though, that includes stuff like marketing budget. It includes stuff like how much the ticket sales get to keep. It includes these things. That's why you do the math, is to see how much after all the expenses it makes. But the math is just a generic kind of averaging of how much movies usually do. It's not necessarily accurate.
Since it's made $588 million worldwide. It's not
Well, that's actually over 600 now, I think, right?
the biggest superhero hit ever, but technically it's profitable and making money for Warner. But if you didn't like that first formula, here's the second one. This time, you add up the production and marketing costs and then multiply the total by 1.5. According to Variety,
1.5. This is a big budget one, though.
Warner spent $125 million on marketing, so the total cost of Superman was $300.
Wait a second, I haven't seen that
Variety.
before.
Warner spent $120.
The film cost $225 million and another $125 million to market globally. The latter including pricey stunts like a Superman figure hovering over the apex of London's tallest building, the Shard. Okay, so what they're doing is they're cutting out the marketing budget because they have it. So now they're trying to include the ticket sales and different things like that. Okay, that's what's going on with this math. All right, I'm following.
$5 million on marketing. So the total cost of Superman was $350 million. Multiply that by 1.5, and the break-even point comes out to $525 million. Actually,
well, that's even less. Other people are getting numbers like 700 million. How are y'all getting those numbers? Put it in the comments how you're getting those. I thought he was going to... He only said 2 math styles, right?
Actually a bit lower than with the first formula. As of now, that would mean Warner made around $60 million in profit. Sure, that might not sound like a huge deal for a big Hollywood blockbuster, but I wouldn't mind making $60 million in just a month.
And they made $60 million because they get all the money back from... I'm rambling.
I know what you're typing in the comments, that this math can't be right, because in the months leading up to the release, a bunch of sketchy websites were saying Warner was going to spend over $200 million just in marketing. A lot of people think those numbers are the real ones, and that Variety is just trying to make Warner look good. After all, studios never reveal how much they spend on marketing, and it kind of makes sense that they spent more since the campaign was huge, and it included a full-on global tour and everything. If we went with that imaginary $200 million number as the real marketing cost...
All right, this is what's curious though, because there is it's like with news and stuff. You get people who are just have some YouTube channel shouting out numbers, and it's like, oh, but they're the real numbers, and I'm like, but what do they know? Why do they know it? How did they get to this? What is it coming from? So it sounds like he's going to include that and see what the math does. Also, guys, if you like this Superman collection back here and you want one of your own, go to the link in the description where you can find my Amazon store. It doesn't cost any extra to you, just gives commissions to the channel so that I can continue to do this. And don't forget to check out Mr. Headcanon, makes great videos. The link's in the description.
And using the second formula, Superman's break-even point would be $637 million. And that's a number Warner probably won't hit.
Many monies.
But let's not get too negative.
Not with this, but remember, they still can... Movies no longer make all their money in the theater. Gone with the Wind is still the highest adjusted for inflation movie that has made, all the money ever. Why? Because they didn't have DVDs. They didn't have Blu-rays. They didn't have 4K. They didn't have VHS. They didn't even have their own reels. Basically what happened was they kept re-releasing it so that people could see it again because it was such a big hit. So that's why that number is so big. If they wanted to, they could have had, VHS and Blu-rays or whatever it is, and then people would have bought those. And that money continues to go to the studio. The studio doesn't just not get that money. They get money for that. So all the digital sales, all the Blu-ray sales, all that is going to go be profits for this movie. It won't be the theater profits, but it will be overall, which if you add that stuff, tons of movies have probably beaten Gone with the Wind because they've gotten their, other movies have had re-releases in the theaters too.
Because there's no way to confirm if Warner really spent that much on marketing. And even if they did, we can't forget that none of...
Unless someone goes to jail. then we know that false reporting.
These magic formulas take into account all the money the studio makes from merchandising. Superman doesn't just make money from ticket sales. The movie had big collabs with brands like Toyota and Spotify, which paid Warner to use the Superman name to hype up their own products.
And this is how business is done now in the movies. They no longer, it's been before COVID that they've been doing stuff like this, way before COVID, to make more money on movies, not just in the theaters, because they started expanding. COVID hit them hard and they started learning to do it bigger. And now I think that's part of why we're seeing such a decline in billion-dollar movies being as common, is because people are willing to wait. I knew so many people that said they were excited about the movie, but they would just watch it when it comes to stream. They're like, I don't like people. I don't like getting out. They didn't used to be that way. They don't have to live in a world anymore where they have to get out. They can order everything in. They can pull up to Walmart, sit in their car, and get the groceries can get delivered now. You know, it's crazy. And that really does have an effect.
Not to mention all the toy companies that paid for the official license to release their...
The strange thing is that's how Americans are getting, but Americans are the ones that went and saw this movie. It's the people in the other countries that have more of lifestyles where it's crazy.
Their own merch for the movie. Unfortunately, we don't have official numbers yet on how much Warner made from those deals. But just for reference, Man of Steel made $170 million just from brand deals before the movie even dropped.
I never knew that figure. Wow, that's pretty daggum good.
Even if Gunn's Superman...
Probably 7-Eleven, that was in there. I can't remember. There was a Carl's Jr.,
and made just half of that, it'd still be profitable once you add it to the box office revenue. Plus, Superman's also going to make money from digital sales and Blu-rays. Once it hits HBO Max, that's even more cash for Warner, because people will be subscribing to the platform just to watch the movie. They'll probably get a spike in subscriptions the month it drops.
Maybe so. I would feel like they probably, if they were that excited, would have bought the movie. Well, for the same price, yeah.
It's like what happened in 2021 with the Snyder Cut. And if that's still not enough proof that the movie's profitable and a financial win, Gunn himself shut down all the nonsense around the movie. He posted on Twitter...
So he's claiming it's a financial win. Put in the comments if you agree with that or not. I think that the movie didn't make as much as I was hoping it would make, but it also didn't make less than I thought was like a flop style. Like I don't see it as a flop, but I also don't see it as a huge financial success. It just isn't. I see it as a financial success, just not in the theaters as much. You know,
that his movie didn't need to make over $600 million to be profitable, because he wouldn't be dumb enough to kick off a new universe with a movie that needed to make that much cash just to break even.
Well, I'm not an idiot.
That's kind of the problem, though. That humorous idiot comment is that people are thinking because you don't agree or see the way they do that you're an idiot. I have people commenting all the time on my comments that I on the same videos, guys. I have people that will get on there and call me a Snyder bot or a Gunn bot, or, you know, Snyder bro or Snyder cultist, or, you know, Gunn, you know, goon, or whatever it is that they come up with. I get called that all the time on both sides. And I tell, you know, both sides that, and they always are like, whoever called you that's an idiot. And I'm like, we got the hate, guys, the hate. You got to quit. It's fake stuff. Like, I love Superman, but he's not real. Let's not get so up in arms and be willing to fight somebody over something that's not real. You know what I'm saying?
It's profitable, and saying it was a box office bomb is just straight up wrong. But even then, there are still people calling it a disappointment and saying it underperformed since it didn't.
Wait, I want to see that.
But even then, there are still people.
I'm gonna have to use that for a thumbnail sometime. Oh man, that's good. Oh,
people calling it a disappointment and saying it underperformed since it didn't even match what Man of Steel made. Maybe it made money for Warner, but some say it's still a step back for the Superman franchise and that it can't really be considered a true hit.
Not domestically, though. You got to realize, like, a lot of people domestically like the movie. It was the international is where we're having a problem. But I'm hoping, and this is what I suspect will happen, the digital comes around, it gets cheap, people will start watching it, people will enjoy it, and when the next one comes, which we're not going to have a Superman 2, which is a stupid decision on James Gunn's part, then they'll go and watch the next movie. But they might not if there's not a Superman 2. They'll be like, well, I don't want to see something that's not Superman, you know.
That's because Hollywood pays a lot of attention to franchise progression. If a second movie makes more than the first, like what happened with Ant-Man, it means the franchise is doing well and can keep going. But if a sequel makes less, like with Quantumania, then the whole thing gets tossed out, because it means people aren't interested anymore. But is that really the case with this movie?
No.
Earlier I mentioned that
that's not the case with those. It's often they messed up and did something dumb, and they can revive it. They're trying to push agendas or whatever the case is.
Gunn's Superman is the second highest grossing Superman movie, just 70 million behind Man of Steel. But if we adjust for inflation, it drops to 5th place, even behind Superman Returns and Superman 2. If we include every movie the Man of Steel has appeared in, it drops to 7th. Though that's kind of an unfair comparison, since it's like comparing a Captain America movie to an Avengers one.
Never mind.
Still, it helps give us a rough idea of how each movie performed. Once you factor in inflation, Gunn's Superman falls pretty far behind Man of Steel, which nearly hit the billion mark, and that could be seen as a disappointment. But inflation can be a tricky thing, because we should really adjust everything. The budget for Man of Steel would be over 300 million today, almost 100 million more than Gunn's film.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they start doing inflation. Like, the amount that Zack Snyder got paid would be crazy high. The amount that inflation, I've talked about this before, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on it, but it's not 100% across the board. It doesn't work like that. It's just not how it works. It's not like, because some businesses have gained a 10% increase. Some businesses have gained like 400% increase. So, I mean, it's all over the board. It's different, you know?
And there's no clean way to calculate exact numbers, since 56% of Man of Steel's box office came from outside the US.
Yep.
You'd have to manually adjust for inflation in every country, not just use US dollars.
I'm a doctor, Cliff, not a mathematician.
Still, even without adjusting for inflation, Man of Steel brought in more money, and more importantly, it sold more tickets. Which brings us to the second question. If Gunn's Superman has such good reviews and seems to have brought the fandom together, why didn't it hit the same numbers as Man of Steel? The answer
That's where I'm at, especially internationally. But do we have any international reviews, I wonder?
lies in the context, not the quality of the movies, which is a topic for a whole other video. Man of Steel dropped in 2013, just a year after the first Avengers movie, which kicked off the golden era of superhero films. Back then, Ant-Man passed 500 million, Venom went over 800, and Aquaman hit 1 billion. That's not happening anymore, because superheroes don't have the same pull at the box office these days. The genre isn't dead like some people claim, but we're not in the era where any superhero flick starring a side character could pack theaters. Just to show
We're also not in the era where people are just going to go out in the weekends and go to movies.
how much this matters, in 2013, Man of Steel missed being the top superhero movie of the year by a massive 545 million. It wasn't even close to first place. But Superman is the highest grossing superhero movie of 2025 with 588 million, and no other movie is even coming close.
It is amazing that you can be the highest of the year, have really good reviews, and be called a flop all the time. Like, that is great. This is, guys, where my brain's just like getting fried. I'm like, and they're continuing with the universe, and there's no like breaks or nothing. They are moving forward. So all the flop stuff, it's hard to listen to, because it's like, why would they be doing that if it was lost them money and it was a flop and nobody was interested? Like, the reviews were good. They're saying it made money. Like, it's really confusing.
Plus, Man of Steel came right after Nolan's Batman trilogy, which had set the bar sky high for DC's live-action films. People were hyped to see more of DC's characters, because Nolan had made the DC brand feel like a mark of quality. But
Is that the gloves he had?
see more of DC's characters, because
Are we for real? I don't remember that. Is that the gloves Batman had? What is that? That just looks like something you'd put on to clean the dishes. What are you doing, Batman?
Nolan had made the DC brand feel like a mark of quality. But up until just last year, casual audiences would straight up
That's
run the other
goofier
way
than this.
if you tried to talk to them about DC. Because of the canceled projects, flops from the old DCU, actor scandals, and non-stop fan drama, people were embarrassed to even say they were DC fans. All of that definitely affected Gunn's Superman at the box office, something Snyder's Superman didn't have to deal with back in 2013.
I don't buy it.
That is true, though. I hadn't thought about it that way, that DC kind of made a bad name for itself. And that might be why a lot of people didn't even want to get out and see this movie, and like waiting till it's on stream is because they're like, the other DC movies weren't good. I'm not going to invest in this. I'll wait till it comes on stream, till a friend invites me over. That could be a lot of what's happening.
Thinking this all just sounds like excuses, and that if the new Superman movie were really that good, it should have made just as much or more than Man of Steel. Maybe you think movies exist in a vacuum, totally separate from...
I mean, it's a logical thought. I mean, that's not insane to say that. The insane part comes when it's like they're continuing with the universe. Everybody's reviewing it really good. That's where it starts to get strange. You know what I mean? It's like, why did it not do as good if it was better well received? It's like people say all the time, Man of Steel had more people actually go and see the movie. I'm like, yeah, but the majority of those people didn't like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there might be more people who liked this movie than there were of the people who liked the other one. Though Man of Steel may have had more people go, the rest of them didn't like the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so wacky.
Any context. And it's not like I'm trying to defend the giant corporation here. But remember, Batman Begins only made $375 million.
Yeah.
If you adjust that for inflation, it made less than Batman Forever. And no one in their right mind would say Batman Forever is the better movie.
And those movies are basically made to sell toys.
The key there was also context. Batman Forever came after Tim Burton's run, when people still liked the Caped Crusader. People showed up thinking Batman Forever was going to be good, but Batman Begins had to win the audience back after Schumacher wrecked the franchise. Nolan's movie had to prove Batman films could actually be good again.
See, and that's a fantastic point, is that Batman Begins was coming off the cusp of a terrible Batman series that ruined something that was great with Keaton because it was the same universe. And people, like even me, I went to go see the movie. I didn't think the movie was as great as people did. I rated about like a 7.5 or something. And I liked what they did with it. I liked the realism and stuff. But besides, I didn't never understand why people were raving about the movie. And then Dark Knight came out, and I was like, "Oh, this is good," you know.
Same thing happened with Gunn's Superman. Even if it were hands down the greatest superhero movie of all time, it never would have hit $1 billion or outperformed Man of Steel because of all the baggage it had to carry. And I'm not even getting into how streaming has impacted superhero movie box office numbers. That's a whole other video coming soon. But we've still got one last question to answer. We already know Superman was profitable and that it couldn't possibly outgross Man of Steel because of all the baggage from the old DCU. But does Warner actually consider it a success? To figure that out, we need to understand what Warner was hoping to achieve. The studio had 3 main goals. First, avoid going broke like the last universe was. Second, convince people that DC Studios is a quality brand. And third, probably most importantly, get audiences invested in the new universe.
It's gonna be a lot of work.
On the first point,
Yes.
they did pretty well. Besides all the numbers we've already gone over, Superman earned more domestically in its first 48 hours than the last 4 DCU movies made in their entire domestic runs. In just its first 10 days, it made more than the entire worldwide run of Thunderbolts and beat 4 of the last 5 DCU movies overall. It made more money than Blue Beetle, Shazam 2, The Flash, and Black Adam.
These are all really good points, but the curiosity is still the international numbers. Why is it not performing internationally?
Also totally outperformed Aquaman 2 and Captain America 4. And most importantly, DC beat Marvel at the box office for the first time in 17 years. Sure, Fantastic Four isn't gonna hit $1 billion, and the MCU isn't pulling in what it used to back in 2019. But this hasn't happened since 2008, when The Dark Knight came out. Superman just made history for DC. It's a strong start for the new DCU, and got a great reception. So not only are they not
Would you agree with that? Superman just made history for DC.
going broke, they might actually be starting something that could surpass the MCU in the mid to long term. But beyond that, Warner also needed people to like the movie, so they could move forward with their plans for a new shared universe. It wouldn't have mattered if Superman made more than Man of Steel, if people left the theater unimpressed, if the fandom stayed divided, or if casual audiences didn't fall in love with this new Superman. But luckily for them, Gunn's movie got amazing ratings from both critics and audiences across all the review sites. The
Yeah.
movie took over social media even before it came out. And
Y'all may not remember this, but Man of Steel, it was about a 50-50 on critic score. Audience score was closer to like 60%, but it wasn't good either. It's been manipulated since. But back in 2013, it was very divisive. Like, a lot of the people that went didn't like the movie. They thought it had bad character development. They thought it didn't represent the Superman they knew. It was very divisive. And that's why this movie is so divisive, because a lot of people ended up watching that at home and enjoying it.
it got people excited about the future of the DCU. It's no coincidence that Gunn dropped the Supergirl poster just a few days
Which is really cool. It has me excited.
after Superman premiered. He knew people would be more interested in a story about Superman's cousin because they liked the Superman film.
That does make sense.
People got excited about Superman again, to the point where views for Man of Steel on HBO Max jumped 218%, reaching the highest view count it's ever had on the platform. And I'm pretty sure Season 3 of My Adventures with Superman is gonna pull in better ratings than the first 2 seasons, all thanks to the new movie. I know I keep coming back to the same
I haven't watched much of that. I need to watch more of that.
same comparison, but Gunn's Superman had a goal similar to what Batman Begins aimed for back in the 2000s. It didn't need to make $1 billion. It just needed to give the hero a fresh start and get audiences to fall back in love with an iconic character who'd been struggling. And in both cases, the movies pulled it off. So just for that, they're already a win. Gunn made everyone like Superman again by making him more human than ever. And in this video, I'll explain exactly how he did it.
So, guys, that was a pretty interesting video. Let me know in the comments if this video at all made you think one way or the other, whether or not this is a flop or it's a, a financial success. I personally think the movie did good enough on the financial front to keep going. And I think it did fantastic on the critic front as far as Superman movies go. And I don't know, guys. Just let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to check out my store. Don't forget to check out my live streams at 9 p.m. Eastern on Mondays, where I connect with the audience and play a Superman game of some kind or superhero game of some kind. The gamer's the important part. It's talking to my audience. And watch one of these videos.